Welcome to the Executive Coaching Podcast, where Executive Coach Alicia Cowan will discuss leadership topics and coaching solutions to tackle the most difficult problems that keep you from leading your team to success.
Hey there, leaders. It's Alicia Cowan. Welcome to episode number 76 of the Executive Coaching Podcast. Today, we are in mid-October as I'm recording, and I will tell you, we are in the fall season. I cannot believe it. It is going quickly this year. And I feel like I say that a lot, but it really truly has gone so quick through summer, and I can't believe we're already in mid-October and heading into fall and looking towards the holiday season. I feel like Halloween's just like a blink of an eye away. I went into the stores last week. There were already Christmas things and Christmas decorations in the stores. We have not even hit Halloween. It is incredible. So I will say I've been talking to a lot of you listeners, and everybody is in this like wrap up to the end of the year mode and starting to go into the focus towards the back half of the year. I'm going to say back quarter of the year, and ending it really strong. And that's really the mindset of everybody that I've been talking to lately. For us, it's fall football season, and that is really what it's all about. For the next couple of weeks, we've got some home games to attend for my daughter. She's a sophomore varsity cheerleader, so we're going to be doing that. And then this weekend, we also have the 49ers and the Buccaneers game. So my husband's a huge 49ers fan. But of course, we live in Tampa Bay, so I don't know who we're going to be cheering for. Probably a little bit of both this weekend. So that's what's happening around the Cowan house. And I want to give a quick shout out before we really jump into this topic. This topic that we're going to talk about today is inspired by my clients and recent conversations that I've been having. And I want to give a quick shout out. I've talked to a couple of you listeners and slash clients this week. And I know a lot of you are listening to this podcast, and I know that it sounds like the executive presence topic has been resonating with you. And so really glad to hear it. A lot of you have said, when you listen to the podcast, it feels like I'm speaking directly to you and I know you. And while I may not have met you directly, yes, I do know what you're going through. And yes, I am speaking to you because I so deeply empathize with what you're going through and what the experience is that you're having as a senior leader. So I want you to know that you're not alone in this. And that's why some of these topics feel so relevant, is because I bring them straight from some of the conversations I'm having, confidentially, of course, to you, because thematically, they really are what you're going through as a senior leader. So what I want to talk about today is something that I've been seeing in some high performing, high growth environments. And I'm hearing from leaders that are quote unquote so busy, and then they don't even realize how much their own habits are holding them back. And what I mean by this, and before you go into it and say, no, that's not me, if your calendar looks like chaos and you find yourself fixing more problems than your team is, then this podcast is for you. And what I want to talk about is it's being so busy and so involved in all the problem and firefighting and problem solving that we forget to actually lead. And I've been talking about executive presence, but what I think can really trip us up with executive presence and leading and having executive presence is the failure to delegate. And that's what we're going to talk about today. We all have been guilty of this in some form or fashion. If you have ever had a direct report or a team, we've all been there where we hesitate to delegate and give work away. And so it's commonplace. It can happen. So again, don't want you to feel alone in this. And this is not about feeling guilty or shaming you. It's actually quite normal. But I want to help you work around it, and we want to work through it. And I'm going to challenge you to think about this in a more creative way today. It's something that I think is unique when we're talking about delegating. There, of course, are a ton of tactics out there on how to give work away and the tactics. But when I give you this concept to think about of the mindset, of delegating and actually what we might be avoiding through the process of delegating. So I want to call this out. Right now, a lot of companies are in this pace that it may be high growth, it may be fast moving, there's a lot of chaos, there are a lot of fires, and there is this constant badge of being busy. And so a lot of people say that when you ask, how are you doing? And they'll have this like badge of honor and say, oh, I'm so busy. My hair's on fire. It's been crazy. It's insane. And we hear that a lot. And so I want to set the stage. If you find yourself in this situation, you're running at 100 miles an hour, you're solving problems, you may be staying in the weeds, and yet it feels productive. But what I want to ask is what if that is the very thing that's holding your team and you back? All right, so let's go into it. Let's talk first about what the situation may look like. You've got high growth, you've got high speed chaos. So when you're in a situation where the business is growing fast, everything can feel urgent. And a lot of the leaders, including yourself, might be running on adrenaline and find yourself moving from like one fire drill to the next. You may find yourself with a full plate. You've got a new team, maybe some new hires or newly promoted hires, newly promoted leaders on your team that are neither new to the company or maybe new to their role. You've got a slew of new projects or new launches or new buildings, new sites, right? Whatever, and new expectations that are being placed upon you as a leader, new expectations that you have of your team, right? So everywhere you look, just a full plate. And what I found is it's easy for leaders to fall into this like pattern of thinking. I heard this so many times this week and why it's so relevant. I'll just do it myself. It's faster. I heard some version of that through many different conversations this week. And this sense of wanting to hold on to things and knowing that it's not good, it's not healthy, it's not the right way of doing it, but not being able to like get out of the habit and the pattern of doing that. And that's what's great about, again, some of these leaders are bringing it to me and they recognize it and they feel it. And you know what? Sometimes I will admit they're not wrong in the sense of thinking that you'll do it better and faster by yourself. Sometimes in the moment, that is the truth. But here's what happens, and this is why coaching can be helpful, is because what I've seen is over time, and again, some of these leaders are bringing this to me as well, over time, that helpful habit of like, I'll just do it myself, that statement sometimes becomes a bottleneck in the business. And over time, what can happen, it's this ripple effect, right? Because that one domino of I'll just do it myself faster, that one domino, and it keeps falling time over time, then bottlenecks to the point where you're not giving the work away to somebody, so they never really learn how to do it. Certain leaders continue to take on that work themselves and they hold on to it. They don't teach anybody else. And then what you have over time is this workforce of direct reports that don't get developed or don't have that growth. And then you've got the senior level of leadership or management where they've held on to all of this work. And so they start to burn out. And then there's just this triple effect and ripple effect across the enterprise where everyone is actually less effective at their job. Here's the deal. When you go and you fix every problem yourself, your team doesn't learn, they don't stretch into the role, and then you stay stuck at the center of every decision that needs to be made. And you start missing things, right? You look left, you look right, and you just miss it because you're human and you can't be in every room and you can't make every decision. You can't be in everything. And again, a lot of you have come to me, you speak to me, you know this, you recognize it, and good for you. I'll say if you're at that point where you're in your career and you're recognizing, you're saying, I know I'm stuck in this habit. I know I'm doing this. I have to get out of it. First off, good for you. Awareness is the first step. Okay. And so if your day to day looks like this, constant problem solving, quick fixes, tons of meetings that you're not necessarily needing to be in, that might be your day to day. So An example of this might be like getting calls about issues. So you get a call and you're asked to fix something, a problem's come up. But instead of bringing your team member along or asking somebody else to help you solve it, the thought comes up, it'll be faster if I just fix it myself. If that sounds familiar, then you have to remember that the impact might be is that the associate doesn't learn or grow. And then as a leader, you stay trapped in this execution mode. So here's the cost. When you, as a senior leader or an executive, you're in constant motion, it actually feels really great. It actually feels like you're accomplishing something. But what happens is you're actually avoiding something deeper. You're focused on these tasks instead of the people work. What that people work may look like, what you might be avoiding is developing your team. It might be hiring some of the key roles that you need. If you have a bunch of open roles that have stayed open for a long period of time, I might be talking to you. You might be avoiding allowing growth. And this is growth both for yourself and for the team. And you might be stuck in this reactive thinking rather than allowing yourself to create space to think strategically. I was coaching the leader just around this morning. She's stepping into a massive role and she has to create space to put a strategic plan together rather than staying in the weeds with her team. And that's where that leadership gap comes in. You can be busy all day long and actually not lead anyone to move forward. Okay. And what's weird about this is it actually can hit your dopamine center and feel really rewarding. But what happens is these leaders, as a leader that's not delegating, you're not thinking long term about this leadership impact of the decisions you're making day to day. What do I mean by that? Well, the long-term impact is unintentionally capping your team's potential as well as your own. And when you stay in that doing, you're actually, again, robbing yourself and you're robbing the team of growth opportunities and you're robbing yourself of being able to be in that bandwidth and that space of thinking strategically. So here's the unique point of view that I want to impart you with. This is the coaching that I'm going to give you today. So here's what can be potentially happening underneath of all this. This is a unique viewpoint to say, this is actually an under feeling problem. What do I mean by that? Okay, so many leaders find themselves doing too much. So action, 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 getting in the weeds, doing all the work rather than delegating, and feeling too little. Okay, what do I mean by that? Well, why I'm saying this is because doing and accomplishing, checking things off the list, solving problems, like answering emails, like it actually gives you a dopamine hit of accomplishment. And I know this sounds wild because sometimes you're like, well, I feel run down and I feel like overworked and I feel like a lot. But in the moment, when you accomplish those things, you actually feel super productive. You feel like a sense of accomplishment and usefulness, and you feel in control. And that's a big one. That's a big one that you struggle with. And I've heard leaders say this, like, I love to be in the weeds and feel the decision making and be at the center of things and feel in control. Okay. So just know your brain is working in a way to reward you for getting that work done. Again, that's sometimes a useful thing for us. But I will say, delegating, on the other hand, can feel uncomfortable, especially for leaders that are like rising to these new levels of leadership, which again, some of you I've talked to this week, you are doing that. You're getting to the point where you're rising to that level where you are further and further away from the daily work. And it is uncomfortable. And we don't want to describe it that way. We don't want to admit it, but it actually is really not easy. It's not comfortable for us. And so that's the feeling at times that we don't want to feel, is that discomfort, the discomfort of letting go, the discomfort of giving the work away, the discomfort of not being in control. And so that's why I describe it as an under feeling problems, because we do all this stuff to avoid that uncomfortable feeling of giving work away. But what if it was as simple as that, as feeling uncomfortable, but doing it anyway? So I encourage you, you've got to choose carefully when you are going to take that work on yourself and when you are going to decide to slow down, to explain, to trust, and to release control. It really takes a lot of time and discipline to delegate well. And those two things, I get it. They are in short supply when you are in these high growth, fast paced environments. And I get it. So I know where the resistance is coming from. But the truth is, if you don't slow down to delegate with intention, you will never speed up and scale your leadership. I'm going to say that again. Without slowing down to delegate, super intentional, you're never going to speed up and scale your leadership. So it's that whole phrase. I love that phrase. You've got to slow down to speed up. And I don't want to be unrealistic and say that you should never, ever take the work on when you need to. There's times where you absolutely should step in, but you've got to recognize when you're doing this over and over again and holding on to too much work. And when you delegate, it doesn't give you that instant sense of accomplishment. And that's where your brain fights it. But here's the truth. The discomfort of delegation is exactly where that next level of leadership has to live. So I'm going to give you some phrases here. It's not about overworking, it's under feeling. So, leaders, remember, you're going to crave the sense of feeling of accomplishment. You're going to crave that feeling and that dopamine hit for completing something that's tangible. I'll give you an example. If you've ever been in a situation where you want to rage clean, if you know that phrase, you know what I'm talking about. Rage clean is when you're like, you come out of something that's super frustrating and you're not really comfortable, and you go and you'll do something like clean the kitchen or like purge out the entire pantry or something, and you do it out of frustration because when you're done with it, you're like, wow, everything's so fresh and clean and I can see the result. That's what I'm talking about. So if you've ever had that feeling, that dopamine hit for something tangible being done, that's that equivalent of doing the work versus delegating. And delegating doesn't have that same rush at first. It actually feels super uncomfortable because you're releasing control. It feels super uncertain and it feels slower because you have to give the work away and you're not exactly sure when it's going to get done because you just handed it off to somebody else. This is where time and discipline come in. Time, because growth and delegation, they do take longer up front. Okay, so you have to use them wisely. Discipline, because you have to resist that quick hit of doing it yourself. Okay, so let's talk about the impact when you avoid discomfort. When you stay in fix it mode, you're going to train your team to depend on you. If they go to you, they're going to, and you always take on their problems and you do it, they're going to know and rely on you to do that. And they're going to expect it. So you're going to have to do a little bit of unlearning if you constantly stay in the fix it mode. You're also going to block their growth. You may burn out faster. And you're going to rob yourself of the time of doing the executive work that you really need to do. Big picture strategy, building culture, long-term planning. So you do get to solve problems. Unfortunately, they're not always the problems that get solved within a couple of hours or a couple of minutes, right? They are the problems that get solved over time, and you don't get to see the result of that work right away. If you continue to not delegate, you're also going to lose credibility as a developer of people. And as a result, your leadership brand is going to start sounding like they are a great operator, but they are not a scalable leader. And we don't want that, right? So let's reframe this. Leadership is a long game. Delegating is not about efficiency. It's actually about scaling. It's how you grow that next layer of leaders. And it's also how you buy back your own time to think strategically. If you want to make a bigger impact long term, you got to get comfortable with these discomfortable, uncomfortable feelings that come from not just being the one who will fix it. Okay, so let's move through how to move through this discomfort. Here's your coaching mindset shift. Doing the work yourself feels productive, but leading the work, this is where this magic and the really impact is going to happen. So we're going to move through this discomfort of delegating through a couple of these steps. So here's what you can try in the next week. Number one, like I mentioned before, awareness is huge. So I want you just to notice when you find yourself jumping in to fix it. Pause here. Ask yourself, am I doing this because it's truly necessary that I do this work? Or because it's easier than coaching somebody else through it? Okay. And again, I get it. This is not going to be a light switch where you just turn the page and instantly change and instantly need to pass everything off to your team. So all I'm asking you to do in the first step is pause and ask yourself that question. Is this truly necessary that I do this? Now, move on to step 2. Ask yourself, am I solving this because it's faster or because it feels better to be in control? And is there a leadership muscle that I am avoiding strengthening right now? All right, now move on. Now I want you to name the emotion that you might be feeling. What is uncomfortable about delegating this? Am I feeling fearful? Am I impatient here? Do I feel like I'm losing control? I want you to name it. The reason why is because it'll take the sting out and it'll help make you a little bit more aware. Next, I want you to coach and not correct. When somebody brings you an issue, I want you to just pause, resist the urge to solve it, and then instead maybe ask some questions. A simple question you can use is, what have you tried so far? Or what options do you see? Or what next step do you think might work? Okay, just a couple of simple things. Again, this doesn't mean you completely switching your style. It's a simple question just to ask to actually start the dialogue. And then the last step in this, play the long game. Your goal is not to move faster today. It's actually to build capacity for tomorrow. And again, be patient with yourself. This is not a light switch. Just working on some of these simple actions can help you move the needle in your leadership. All right. I want to encourage you, audit your week. Where did I default to doing instead of leading? And I want you to remember the growth of your team depends on your ability to let go, even when it's super uncomfortable. Leadership is not about you doing more. It's about creating more capacity for others to do. All right, leaders, I believe in you. You can delegate. You don't have to give it all away all in one swoop. You can do it one piece at a time. And if this message hits home, I would love to share it with another leader. You can give them this message if you know somebody that's been living in the quote unquote doing zone, or I'd love to hear from you directly. You can message me on LinkedIn. I am active over there posting and talking about these topics. And I'd love to hear what delegation challenges you are facing right now. So that's what I have for you. And the most effective executives that I coach are not the ones that do the most. They're the ones who lead others to do more. So if you're ready to stop doing it all and you want to start leading at a bigger scope and scale, this is the type of work I do with executives every day. Let's make delegation a superpower instead of this uncomfortable zone that you keep avoiding. I'm here to help you as always. You can reach out to me. Again, I mentioned I'm on LinkedIn. You can reach out to me on our website. It's ElisiaCowanCoaching.com. It's ElisiaKeown coaching.com. And we will see you over there. Thanks for listening. As always, we'll see you next time. Bye.
Thanks for joining us for this episode of the Executive Coaching Podcast with Alicia Cowan. If you're ready to have an executive coach who's ready to help you lead your team to success, then book an introductory call at aliciacowancoaching.com/call.